Hagstrom Bass 210. Never seen one of these before. What a strange looking amplifier. So this has come in for a restore, and it is in a bit of a state, but I would like to find out more about this. Any subscribers that are from Sweden to the channel, or anybody who's from Sweden who watches the channel, I'm sure this is probably a familiar sight to you. I have to say it's the first one that I've ever seen, and it is in a bit of a state, and I'm really looking forward to restoring this amp. How far we're going to go with it? Well, we're obviously the electronics we're going to restore. There's such things as these screws you can see coming out of here. We're going to try and change all the screws. We're going to check to see if that originally was screwed on. If it wasn't, we've now got 4 holes, and that comes, you can see that's come out there. It's like Fender grill cloth. This is the original cloth. I have had a look online, and I did find a picture of these amps. It's a very simple class A single-ended amp. It will be class A if it's single-ended, of course. The cabinet's made of chipboard. We've got a volume and a filter, which I'm not sure whether that's a tone control. We've got, it says mic there for those 2 inputs, so I'm not sure why it says Bass 210. Just an on-off switch. Now the voltage is a little bit concerning on here, because we've got 130 volts and 220. We don't appear to have anything else on there, so we're going to have to look at that and see if this has to be run at 220 volts because of the filament voltages. Remember, the voltage in the UK reaches 240 volts. So it looks like we've got an EL84 there, and that's obviously a 12AX7 primer. You can see there inside. Probably can't see as good because it's a bit dark in there. Camera doesn't always pick it up. So let's swing it round and just have a look at the back. I've not plugged it in yet. Just plug the speaker in there. So nothing really to see on the back, just a grill going on there. There's the power cable. I'm afraid that will need a coat of looking at. I do believe, if we just turn it back round, we can see that there. If we look in, we can see it is clamped down, so at least, so that's something. I think what we'll do, and in fact I do believe that this is not fastened into its chassis, and it actually isn't. So fastened into its chassis, fastened into its case, so we can remove it. We won't be able to get the plug through that socket, but I want to check this plug before we do anything else. Whoops, move the camera there. I'm just going to check this plug and see. I think we've got a ground. Is that a 13 amp fuse? Oh no, that's a 3 amp. That's good. Let's just check these are tight. That one's a little loose, but not too bad. That's live's a bit loose, but there we go. So we just check that. So we will cut that off eventually because it doesn't have the insulation on, and so we need to put the correct plug on it. So let's just move that back. Let's just ease the camera back a little bit so we can see what we're doing there. Let's have a look at the tubes. That doesn't say anything on it, but it looks like an EL84. Some gumption in the tube socket. That socket doesn't look great. and obviously ECC83 12AX7 on there. Transformer, power transformer, output transformer. So we've got some capacitors here, 50 plus 50, that's rather loose, so we'll have to look at that. And we've got a 20 plus 20 there. So a good bit of capacitance for a single-ended amplifier. Now let's have a look on, and I'm just going to remove these tubes while we tip it over. It's a bit grabby as well. Let's just alter the angle of the camera so we can look into it a bit better. There, should we go in? Now we can see not much to it. We've got a pilot light there. Strange how that's been put together. Fastened in well. And you can see this has got the same problem as the club when we looked at. The bands are beginning to flake off the resistors, but that's 100. Is that 100k? Not sure, we'll have to check those. That is 1 meg. I have a feeling that these coupling capacitors may have been changed before, I don't know. That's the cathode bypass capacitor, of course it is, yeah, and there's the cathode resistor there. Oh, what we got here? We've got some sockets on the side here. Not sure what they're about, and I'm not sure what that is either. Someone's been spraying the dreaded oil in there. Well, that is oil. I don't know what, it's not even WD-40, that's proper oil. I think someone's tried to put it in the controls. It's also all over the board as well. So scoop some of that, you can see, and you can see a line through there. There's a lot of work to do to this amp to clean it up, but it will be a fun project. We've got some ceramics down here. I wonder what the chances are of getting a schematic for this amp. Very interesting amplifier. The cabinet's not in great shape, and as you can see, being chipboard, it's kind of coming apart, but we'll do what we can with it. The covering's tired, and I think there's a slight crack in it there as well, down this side. Also there, is there any? No. And there's no supports in there. We'll have to see if we can put some supports in and strengthen that cabinet. There's a dead spider in the corner I can see, and I think his mate might be with him as well. But they long stopped paying the rent. Let's turn it back up on its end again. Let's just have a look why that capacitor's loose. That's going to be causing grounding issues, I would have thought. Oh yeah, you see the ground's broken away there. Yeah. Let's have a look. That's a bit strange there. If we look now, you can see that we've got square holes here for the capacitors. Ground is going through this. The ground looks like it's going through there. We might have a bit of trouble putting some canned capacitors in there. We've also got no we've got no brackets for the capacitors, so no clamps on this because they've been brought through. So the particular type of capacitor there. So we may have to do something to sort those out. I'm not into stuffing capacitors. It's not really something I do. I think that's a personal thing. Some people do it and there's nothing wrong with it. It's really good, you know, when you see people do that, but it's not for me. I'm one for just repairing things, putting new, you know, the new components in, and if you can see them, you can see them. And I don't like the idea of breaking open those capacitors. Don't know what's inside those, but some people are very good at it. There's a couple of 3 people on YouTube that stuff capacitors and they're absolutely brilliant at it. I've seen the guitarologist do it. Uncle Doug, I can't remember whether Uncle Doug's ever done that before. That's got me now. And the other guy is David Tipton, who does the radios. He's fantastic. He's just, some of the things he does are out of this world. And I'm sure you've watched other people do it, but I won't be doing that with these. So we've got some drop-in resistors there. We've got, that looks like, is that 15k? It is, so that'll be a drop-in resistor. We need to try and trace this amp out if we can't get a schematic for it. We've got another capacitor here coming off this input on the side, and that is 16 microfarad, and that is going to the plate. It is going to the plate, pin 7. Now pin 8 is connected up on here as well. Am I looking at that back to front? I am I? No, I'm not. Pin 1, pin 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, screens 9. Screen resistor there. Yep. Plate. And then that going to the plate and to those. Oh no, it's not going to those. Hang on, we just adjust my glasses. Okay. I'm a bit mixed up with everything, looked a bit blurred then. Just had to pull back a bit. These are quite strong glasses. That's going to ground from the plate on the, I presume that's an L84. That's going to ground. But then we've got pin 8 and pin 2 connected together with a loop there. That is a little strange. Strange, that. I don't know why that would be. Unless they've had some other tube in here at some time. Or that tube isn't an isn't an EL84. It's got a code on it there. I'll have to look at that, but I can't see what the tube is. Interesting. Very grubby inside. There's a lot of work to do on this amp. We are going to have to strip out the board. We're going to have to get all this oil off that's been sprayed in there. It's all over the pots. So we're going to have to get those out, clean those up. We're going to have to clean all this chassis up as well. Quite a lot of work to get this thing back to its former glory. I did look on Reverb, and there was one of these for sale in Poland, and it was about £275. So it's not a massively valuable amplifier, but it's a really cute thing, and it deserves, you know, it deserves restoring. It's a classic bit of kit, whilst it is not in great shape. As they said about the $6 million man, we can rebuild him. and that's what we're going to have a go at doing with this. Right, thought we'd just do a bit of searching on the internet. So I've just gone onto this website, vintageguitarsandbasses.com, but it did say there was amplifiers on here as well. So you can see some of these Hagstrom guitars from the 1950s to 1980s. I don't see anything about amplifiers. Plenty of guitars. Some very different looking guitars there. You can see some of those are quite quirky and nice, really, especially that one. Check this out. Let's have a look. Oh, it's on eBay. £750. Hagstrom Futurama 3 in Daphne blue. Very nice. So look at the headstock. There we go. I mean, I can remember Hagstrom guitars from when I was younger, but I never really thought much about them. It's you kind of, you know, when you're young and you're getting into guitars, you're only interested in Les Pauls, Strats, Telecasters, and so on, Firebirds. Didn't really think much about Hagstrom guitars, but interesting. But we can't find anything about the amplifiers, so let's just type in the amplifier and see if we can find a schematic for it. Bass 210. Let's see what we get. Let's put schematic at the side of that as well. Hagstrom.org.uk. So we'll look at the site. What we got here then? We've got some schematics going on, but have they got the one we want? And can we get to know the age of this amplifier? Some more here. 2-on-10 bass amp. I bet you lot spotted that quicker than me. Ah, there we go. So we do have a so that explains why the tube socket's wired different then. ECLL 800. We'll have to see if we can test that tube on the tester. We hope it's a good one. Something in the back of my mind, you know, that I had one of those at some time. I think what we ought to do as well is type it in here. Ooh. Well, let's just hope that the tube is a good one, because $60 for a new one. Right, I've got the tube tester. I've got the tube plugged in, but we just need the book, as they say up north. So we're looking in the book. I'm just hoping that's in here. ECF. Right, the only other thing we can do is type in an equivalent. 6KH8 is its equivalent. Let's see if we've got that in the book. Nope. So I can't test that tube. No means to test it. Well, that's a bit of a downer. I suppose we'll just have to see if it works, and if not, if it's tired, we'll just have to get another one. That's going to be a lot of money though. if we look at the schematic, it was clearly a push-pull amplifier, but if we look at this transformer, just go in, if we look at this transformer, we can see 2 wires and 2 wires, but if we look here, you can see that it looks like there's been a wire there at some time and it's long gone. There is a wire underneath, so that looks to me like the primary, and we've got each side, we'll have to see if they go to the plates, and then that one is missing, which looks like the center tap to be, which is worrying. Is that missing because someone's been doing some testing? Let's just look at the, I'm just going to look at the tube data again. So anode 1 and anode 2 is pins 3 and pins 8. So we've got an orange and a white wire coming through there. Well, according to that, that is the center tap, because that's coming off the caps, and that is an anode, so it's a plate. So is it a plate that's missing? So what did we say? Pins 3 and pins 8. So pin 3 there, well that's not, that doesn't even correspond with what we've got there. Pins 8, well that's pin 2. So that doesn't correspond at all with what we've got. Anode 2, or plate 2. Is that right? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pin 6 is a grid. So where's that anode? Where's that anode? That plate then? What number is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Six is a grid on the diagram. Has someone been messing in here? It's getting that sinking feeling. So this is the anode, or what I thought was the anode, because I thought that was an EL84, as you would. That's going to one of the capacitors. That's the screen. Pin 6, that's the screen. And then this is coming from the screen to ground. Not sure about that. That's wired up really strange. I'm going to have to get my head in this and try and work out what's going on. Let's get the meter and let's test this. Let's test this output transformer and just see what we've got. Oh dear, it's very grubby, this amp, very grabby indeed. So we certainly won't be plugging it in, not in the state this is in. And I know there's people out there that like to see me plug this in, but I have to say that would be at this stage, would be very risky. I don't even know if that's the correct tube for this amp. I mean, we know due to the schematic, but I don't even know if that socket's wired. At the moment, nothing seems to make sense with it. So I'm going to do some measuring. The first thing we're going to measure is that transformer. So we want to be on resistance. So now we've got, let's just see what we've got then. So let's go from the orange to the missing wire one. we've got 189 ohms going across there. So let's try the other side. Or we're assuming that's the other side. 203. Let's try these two. We should have half that, if sorry, double that, of course, not half, double. Yep, and we have 393 ohms. So that transformer appears to be push-pull. Somebody's rewired this amp, because that is a plate and that is a plate. That's one side and that is a centre tap. So if we check again, so now you've watched me do that. Let's just, you can watch the meter. So now you can watch the meter and I'll do the testing here. The orange wire and what I presumed to be centre tap is thus 189 ohms, you can see there. And then if I measure from that centre tap to the white wire, we've got 203 there, so imbalanced. And now if we use the white and the orange wire, you can see we've got 393 there. Just get that one again. Whoops, not much of that left. And you can see that just about adds up to that 393, so just a little bit. So yeah, that's definitely a push-pull output transformer, and the pin 2 as it's labelled is definitely a centre tap. So you can see someone's removed that centre tap, so they've obviously rewired this amp up. That means no markings on this tube. We don't know what this tube is. So now we're at a conundrum with this amplifier. So we don't know what's going on with this amp now. So I've just been doing a bit more of a check-up on this tube. And I've got the pins sorted out. A very bizarre tube. So pin 1 is the plate for the triode. Pin 2 shares grid 1 triode with grid 1 of the pentode. Work that one out. Let that digest for a moment. I mean, somebody, this guy, some of you guys are watching and you know all about this tube. I've not come across it before, and there's a lot of people watching this channel that haven't. Everybody's going, what? Pin 3 is plate 1 of the pentode. 4 and 5 are the filaments, we know that. Pin 6 is grid 1 of pentode 2. Remember there's 2 pentodes in this tube. Pin 7 is the cathode and grid 3. All pretty normal. Pin 8 is plate pentode 2. And pin 9 is grid 2. So the screen is shared throughout the tube. It's what we call a common screen, I think. But the cathode is also shared. There's only one cathode, so there's one cathode and one screen, one grid 2 in this amp. So if we're looking at the schematic, you can see that we've got up on the screen, which is what you're looking at. We've already got a problem with this transformer. We've now got, there's a centre tap here. There's plate either side of the pentodes there. That centre tap is disconnected. If we look at that centre tap, that looks to me like it's feeding the screens directly. It's feeding the screens to me. I can't see any other feed going to the screens other than there. If we look on the voltage rail going along here, I don't see any voltage. Actually, we've got a yeah, but that's feeding the centre tap again. So the 300 ohm resistor through the, yeah, so that's feeding the screens. That wire's been removed. we've already measured the transformer, so we know for a fact that the centre tap's been removed on the transformer. The transformer's push-pull, remember. So let's look at these pins in order then. You can't see them, I've got them written down here. So pin 9, we'll look at pin 9 first, we'll look at the screen. Knowing that we've looked on the schematic, we know that there shouldn't be anything connected to pin 9 because that wire's been removed off the transformer, and that goes to pin 9. So let's look at pin 9. Let's look in the amplifier. So we're looking here, and pin 9 is connected to a 150k resistor. So that's wrong. So we'll put a cross at the side of pin 9. So pin 8 is plate pentode 2. So that's one of these two is pin 8, but the other plate is pin 3. So we're looking at pin 3 and pin 8. Let's look in the amp again. So there's pin 3. That's wired to a 10k resistor. Let's check that on Bully's prize board. So I'm just going to put the meter on there, make sure we've got continuity between that 10k resistor and pin 3. Have we? Got that caught. Yes, I have. So definitely that's wrong. So pin 3 is wired to that 10k resistor. Pin 3 should be wired to at least one side of the transformer, and pin 8 should be wired to the other. So that's wrong. So pin 3 is wrong and pin 8 is wrong. Pin 7 is the cathode, and if we look back at the schematic again, this from what I can make out is the cathode, and remember the cathode is sheared throughout the tube, which makes sense for it to be in the center there. So that comes down to here. That looks like the cathode, sheared cathode. I don't know what's going on there. I presume they've marked that in as part of that. So the shear in the cathode, there's the cathode resistors. I mean, this looks like a cathode follower to me. So, sorry, a cathodion phase inverter, not a cathodion follower. It looks like a cathodion phase inverter to me. Well, I don't know what it looks like. Just kind of going with it. And then we've got 150 ohm cathode resistor and a bypass cap. Those are in the amp. Those are, if we go back to the amp, those are here. So there's the cathode resistor, there's the bypass cap. So we know the cathode's pin 7. Let's have a look at pin 7. Pin 7. Pin 7 is wired to a 10k resistor and has got this 16 microfarad going to ground. That's wrong. So pin 8's wrong as well. This is getting worse all the time. This is beginning to look like another poo fest, and we only had one of those yesterday, and now looks like we've got another one. Remember yesterday when I said I'll end up like Clouseau's boss with a squint and going insane? I may well yet. So where does that leave us now? So pin 9, pin 8, pin 7 and pin 3 are all wrong. So let's have a look at pin 6. Pin 6 is grid 1 for pentode 2. So let's have a look at pin 6. Let's have a look in the amp again at pin 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is pin 6. That's going to the transformer. That's wrong. Plate triode, pin 1. Let's look at that. Looking on the schematic, it says 150 R18, I presume that's got to be 100 and, I think that's 150. That's got to be 150k if it's feeding that plate. There's the coupling capacitor there, so that makes sense. Yeah, all of that. 1 meg grid leak, and then that's our grid stopper of 1k going into that grid there. That all makes sense. So let's have a look at pin 1 in the amplifier. Pin 1. That's going to a 1k resistor, so that indicates that's the screen. But according to the tube data sheet, that's a plate for the triode, so that's wrong. So the last pin is pin 2, which is the shared grid 1 triode with grid 1 pentode. So let's look on here for that. I'm really not sure what's going on. Well, that must be a looped wire then, from there to there. Well, technically that's connected inside. So should that, yeah, grid 1 triode. So that's got to be, if that's the triode and the grid, that 1k resistor's got to be going in there. That's shared. So pin 2 should be connected to the 1k resistor. It's not, because we've already got something else connected to it. So let's look at pin 2 in this amp. Pin 2 is the blue wire here. So we've got pin 2 is connected over to pin 8. That's not right. And pin 2 is also connected to the cathode. Let's check for continuity on the cathode capacitor and that cable there. That's correct. So pin 2 is wired to the cathode resistor and the cathode bypass capacitor. That's not right. So at the end of the first round, we've scored nil points. So none of that is right. According to none of it's right. Not one single pin of that tube is wired up to this ECLL 800. Not one pin. Even Billy Bodger couldn't get that far wrong. I just don't. So is this Brymer tube? We've no reason to suppose it isn't, but I know this is a Brymer tube. I can just about make Brymer out on it, but we don't know whether this is the correct tube. Right, so at the end of all that, what have we deduced? The amp's wired up completely wrong. We assume that this tube is the 1 triode double pentode in the bottle. Looks right. If we look at the tube, we can see the triode there, and we can see the pentode part there, so it looks right, but it's wired up completely wrong. Completely and utterly wrong. Now, as we're restoring this amp, and one of the reasons, two reasons we're restoring this amp. One is because they're extremely rare, and it does look a nice thing, and it's very individual. And two is the guy wants it restoring, but there is a lot of work, and we're just going to have to rewire this amp to the schematic. That's the only thing we can do, which is what we should do anyway. So we need to strip this amp out completely, because we need to get all this oil out of it, which means we've got to completely strip this amp down. We might as well strip it down, because to be fair, nothing's wired up right in it, so we're not going to lose anything by taking it to bits, are we? In fact, it's probably the best thing to do and just start again. So what are we going to do in this restoration? Well, we're going to change these capacitors because they're really old. We need to test the power transformer first, because if If Billy Bodger switched this on with this wired up how it is, then I'm afraid it could be all over. If the transformer's gone, then, well, that's the end. But assuming the transformer's okay, so we're going to change these capacitors, test all these resistors, probably change that resistor. If these test good, we'll leave them in because they're wire wounds. We'll change these diodes because they're really old. We might as well do the job right. We'll change most of the components on this board, and the reason is that even if these components test good, they're flaking away. We can barely read what they are. So I'm going to put some new resistors in for the next guy that comes along, so there's no confusion there. I kind of look at that and think that's 10k. I can just about see the brown, black and orange, and if we look at that one, we can see that that's 1 meg and so on. This one here, 820 ohms, and we can confirm those on the schematic. The bias, let's just check that bias capacitor. I can't get a reading off of that. Can now. Let's see what that's. 180 ohms. Is that what's on the schematic? 180 ohms. We'll have a look. I think it was. So 180 ohms. So we could again, that could be left in. We'll just clean it up. It's got a bit of oil on it. We could probably clean that up and leave that in there. But these resistors are going to have to be changed. Let's just see how they've held up as well. So we think that's 820. So let's just test that. I know you can't see the meter, but well, that measures. Oh, that's 1k. Sorry, I keep doing that. Did that before because you can see the grey there. It's the other way. That's 1k, and that's what's confusing with the bands flaking off. So that's on the money, but unfortunately the bands are flaking off. 1 meg resistor. Is that 1 meg? Yeah, that's virtually on the money, but again it's flaking off. 150k resistor here. 152. Normally you'd say that's okay, leave it, but covered in oil. That one we would say is 1 meg. It is, and that's on the money. That one we think is 10k. Well, that says 1k, so that must be red then, and not orange. And that's what I say. That's, you know, deceptive. So that's 1k. That's got to be changed. That's 15k. Not getting anything on that. 15k. Right on the money again. $3.3k. 3.5, that's a little over. 47k there. Well, that's measuring a bit strange, that one. But yeah, so again, flaking off there, that looks like 100k to me. Let's have a look. Yep, 100k. That'll be a plate resistor. Is that going to, where's that going? Pin 6, 7, 8, yeah, that's a plate resistor on the 12AX7. So most of those resistors test really well, but they just, the bands are just decaying on there and flaking off, so we need to check. We've got to take those out, because in another few years they could be completely blank, and then next guy that comes along, he looks in and he can't see the values on any of it. So what capacitors do we need for this project then? So we need a 50 plus 50 and a 20 plus 20. We don't have much of a hole to put them in. We don't have any securing clamps to put modern capacitors in, so we're going to have to look at that. We're also going to have to find some capacitors that are going to, the terminals are going to fit safely through these square holes. We don't want to be drilling and bodging this chassis unless we're forced to. There's limited places to put capacitors. I suppose if we took these off, we could probably mount some down here. We've got a resistor here, which we really don't know what that resistor's about. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. We need to work out what's going on there. These are coupling capacitors, and they're very large because they were in those days. That is, I can't really see what that is. That 5 nanofarad? No. Can't really see. It's too faded. Let's check again. It'll come up on the schematic. So we need. There's two coupling capacitors. That's a 10 nanofarad. That one there. And these ceramics covered in oil. We need to try and see if we can get. There is something on there. Just have a look. I can't really see. They're not facing us. What's that say? 8200. That's, I don't know. We'll check the schematic. It's really bad in there. It's full of oil and stuff. We're really going to have to. That's all going to have to come out. I don't even know if those pots are going to work properly. So we've got us work cut out with this one, haven't we? Big time. This is a bit of a mess. So I think I might make a part 1 of this, and I'm going to post it and get some opinions on this. Because this tube, I'm really not 100% sure with this tube. I've never seen anything like that before. It's bizarre. I mean, I've got no problem restoring the amp. I've got the schematics. I can wire it up pretty easy. It's no problems there, and we'll make a damn good job of it as well. Let me know in the comments, and anybody from Sweden, and I think I have got a few subscribers from Sweden. You'll probably know. Well, you'll certainly know more about this amp than I know about it. So, you know, any tips on this will be greatly appreciated. This is something I've come across. It's a tube I've never seen before. Very rare. I didn't even know that tube existed. I've seen double pentode tubes, you know, in a 9-pin bottle, but I've never seen a triode and 2 pentodes. That one is a new one. So that'll do it. So thanks for watching, and I know I've probably waffled on a lot in this. I'll try and edit this video so it's not too waffly. So thanks for watching, and you all take care, and I'll see you in the next video, and I look forward to some of the comments you leave me. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye bye.